I'm like, I want to go. It's hard to get this one. Right?
Use the restroom. Stand by.
Thank you.
So we're going to put all this stuff like this so we can make these for us to carry. That'd be great.
5:30.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then I'll, I can even write it down. We're going to use these.
Just come see my son. I don't even need to be there.
I was going to say,
I just gotta pick him up, drop off.
You forget you.
You know both?
No,
Hey, so where's Crystal? Right, exactly. She bring the story. Okay. This is this one. Thank you. I appreciate it.
When you're talking about my height thing, you were arguing something that is not That's me.
I think that my space is required. I'll probably have to stay though.
All rise, please. Circuit Court is back in session.
Is the smoker back?
Sorry,
Is the smoker back? You don't know.
I'll find out.
The smoker.
Search Deloitte. Are you ready to go? Half a minute, he said.
Okay.
Are you ready to bring him in?
Yes, ma'am.
Search Deloitte, when you can bring him in.
Yeah, my eyes are like throbbing. I'm never right. It's always my fault.
Here's our presidency and your docs.
Deputy Birch, you want to come over here a second? Ms. Olney, you may give your closing at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor. Defense counsel wants you to believe that the state thinks Jennifer Mee masterminded this whole entire event. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that Jennifer Mee participated, and she participated in this fashion. She was the bait. She was the bait that lured Shannon Griffin to a back alley that was dark where two of her cohorts waited. Two of her cohorts waited in the dark. She was the bait that attracted him there. He was excited. He was looking forward to seeing a young lady. She was the young lady. And that is why Shannon Griffin is not with us any longer. Isn't it too bad that he's not here to tell us exactly what occurred that night, the night of October 23rd, 2010? Was he there to buy marijuana? Was he there because she lured him there? The only evidence about marijuana comes from the defendant, Jennifer Mee. Nice clothes, cologne, excited, lured there by Jennifer Mee. And how do we know that? How do we know that, ladies and gentlemen? Mr. Trevina, in his opening statement, told you that our star witness was Jennifer Sharon. We didn't even call Jennifer Sharon. You know who our star witness is? The defendant, Jennifer Mee. She's our star witness. I called the victim. I met him on Moco Space 4 or 5 days ago. It was my idea to contact him and get the money. I used LaRon's phone to text him, and he appeared to meet me. He said he was going to buy half ounce of weed for $55. But we didn't have no weed to sell him. We wanted his money. Last night, I spoke to the victim. He wrote me on Moco Space, talking about wanted some weed. Detective DeLuca asked him, and what were the intentions when you gave him LaRon's phone number? Were your intentions to sell him some weed? No, sir. The intentions of both boys was just to rob him, and that was it. Was she a principal in a robbery? You bet. And why do we reiterate the principle over and over? Because it's important for you to know and understand. To prove the crime of robbery, the state must prove the following 4 elements beyond a reasonable doubt. Jennifer Mee took the money or property from the person or custody of Shannon Griffin. Then we go to the principal statute. If Jennifer Mee helped another person or persons commit or attempt to commit a crime, Jennifer Mee is a principal and must be treated as if she had done all the things the other person or persons did, if she had a conscious intent that the robbery be done. The robbery, taking of money or property, the bait, the lure to get that young man back in a dark alley where he could be robbed and his money taken. That Jennifer Mee did some act or said some word which was intended to and which did incite, cause, encourage, assist, or advise the other person or persons who actually committed or attempted to commit the crime. The phone call, ladies and gentlemen, that was thought out prior to that young man arriving there. That phone call, that exchange between the two of them, that was her act. Sending him back down the dark alley was her second act. That force, violence, assault, or putting in fear was used in the course of the taking. I suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen, there was a struggle to get his property. And the struggle didn't work, so they pulled out a firearm and they killed Shannon Griffin so they could go through his pockets and take his property. And you read the principal statute with every element of the robbery. You read that principal statute because it goes to every element of the robbery. If those boys did it, she did it. Let's talk a little bit about Detective Warzinski and the St. Petersburg Police Department. Apparently, defense counsel would like you to believe that they did a horrible job at an investigation. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, they started at about 10 p.m. on October 23rd, went through the night, through the next day, making every effort to contact LaRon Rayford. Every effort, because that's the only name they had. And that was because they got the phone records of Shannon Griffin and were able to connect that he had had contact with LaRon Rayford's phone. They didn't know yet that this young lady, Jennifer Mee, the bait, was using his phone. So their whole focus at that point is on LaRon Rayford. And they're doing everything they can to find him. They know he has an associate, Jennifer Sharon. They figure out that they're living together. They're trying to contact her. She's a no help. She's trying to help him get away. She doesn't answer her phone, and if she does, she hangs it up. But they get information that he's at an apartment off 89th Avenue, North St. Pete. And they go there. So now we start at 10, 11 p.m. on Saturday night. Now we are Sunday, and it's approximately 3 p.m., and they're still working it. They're still working it, ladies and gentlemen. They go there. They see Jennifer Mee with Jennifer Sharon. They know who Sharon is because they pulled her picture up. They pull him over. They tried to get Sharon to say, "Where's LaRon Rayford?" She won't tell them. She's not going to talk. They take her down to the police department, and Jennifer Mee goes as well. At some point, shortly after they arrive at the police department, she sees LaRon Rayford. She now knows he's under arrest. Gary Gibson, Detective Gibson, goes in and talks with her. She gives him a statement. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to totally disregard that statement because it's untrue. And why is it untrue? It doesn't go with her statement. And her statement, ladies and gentlemen, if you are innocent of a crime, why would you tell two different people that you committed the crime? Detective Warzinski, she told. She talked to him freely for about 10 minutes. Then he offered to tape her statement, and you have it in evidence. You can listen to the tape statement where she admits to luring him there. She admits to partaking in this robbery. But who else did she tell, ladies and gentlemen? Her mother. Her mother. I set everything up. It all went wrong. She's crying. She's emotional. It went wrong. You bet it went wrong. It went wrong for Shannon Griffin. That's who it went wrong for. Defense counsel would have you believe, and I'm asking you to rely on your own memories as to what took place. But I submit to you, he asked the detective if he could have ruled out the first version. And the detective said he couldn't. But we got back up on redirect, and I ask you to recall this. He was referring to the initial part of the investigation. Would he have been able to rule that out before he knew what had occurred? And no, he wouldn't have. And he said, but that now, after the investigation was completed, was inconsistent with everything else. So that's not quite factually accurate. And the defense counsel is throwing up a cloud. I'm asking you, ladies and gentlemen, to use your common sense. Use your common sense with the facts in this case. We've got a T-shirt with the defendant's DNA on it. A T-shirt, by the way, a tank top, that's found in the book bag where the gun is kept. It's not just a tank top that's lying around the house. It's with the gun. We have a fingerprint on a driver's license that belonged to Shannon Griffin. What can be said about that? What can be said is that she had that driver's license in her hands. That was property taken from Shannon Griffin. And that alone, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have to prove that they took $55. We don't know if Shannon Griffin took $55 there with him because he's not here to tell us. We do not have to prove that they took $55. We don't have to prove that they took $1. What we know they took was his wallet that included his driver's license and his phone. Those are the things we know they took because those are the things that were hidden up in a vent in someone's apartment. And why were they hidden there? So the police would never know what occurred. The only witnesses we have to this crime, ladies and gentlemen, are Jennifer Mee, the defendant, these are the three witnesses that we have in this crime. The defendant, Jennifer Mee, the defendant, Lamont Newton, and the defendant, LaRon Rayford. There are no other witnesses. We have a neighbor who reported hearing gunshots, testified that he heard gunshots, thought it was close by, went out and looked to see if it was at his house. Something fell. It was a loud clang. He walked down the street and he thought he saw a white male who was elderly. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that is how dark it was back in that corner where Shannon Griffin lay dying. That's how dark it was. Evidence on the T-shirt, the tank top, DNA evidence of one of Miss Mee's cohorts on a number of items to include the firearm. Defense counsel talked about secondary transfer a little bit, how if he touched here, he just thought it was amazing that Mr. Labruzzo could come over here and touch it and then put Mr. Trevina's DNA somewhere. But I want you to recall the testimony of that witness. And she said, Ms. Voorhees, secondary transfers are highly unlikely to result in DNA. What does that tell you? It tells you that LaRon Rayford probably had a hold of that gun and used it to shoot and kill Shannon Griffin. But only after Jennifer Mee called Shannon Griffin and invited him to this crime scene. Had that never happened, he would never have been robbed at gunpoint by Lamont Newton and LaRon Rayford. Dr. Wilson testified that there wouldn't be any soot around the wounds, if you'll recall. And that's important because it shows how close the shooter would have been to Shannon Griffin. The problem with that is, and we won't know and we don't know, is that Shannon Griffin had 2 shirts on. Look at the pictures, ladies and gentlemen. He had 2 shirts on, which would prevent any soot from getting around that wound. So I submit to you that we don't know how close the guns were fired. The gun was fired. And by the way, I want you to look at those photos also. Those shoes that Shannon Griffin was wearing weren't untied. You look at the photographs and you'll see that the shoes were tied. But what about the shoes? What is the importance of the fact that the defendants didn't take his shoes? They left their shoes there also. Why? They had to get out of there. They left the gun there, they left their hat there, they left the book bag there. You think they're going to stop and pick up Shannon's shoes? That makes no sense. Use your common sense. It means nothing. There is no value to the fact that his shoes were left there and they didn't take them with them. That doesn't mean defense counsel would have you believe because they didn't take the shoes, they didn't take any property. Well, we know that's not true because the property was found in another location where all 3 defendants were found. The statements that Detective Warzinski took from Jennifer Mee. He's criticized for not knowing Detective Gibson had spoken to him. But as he tried to relay to you what the St. Petersburg Police Department was like, or is like, and especially like that night, you heard that there were a number of detectives there. There were uniformed officers there, all in this area. There were witnesses that were showing up downstairs that Detective Gibson told you he had to leave and go down and talk to people that had come up to the front desk. Suffice it to say that there was a lot going on. And yes, they were trying to solve this crime. They'd been on it for 24 hours, practically. And remember, Detective Warzinski had just spoken to LaRon Rayford, and whatever he learned from LaRon Rayford set him on Jennifer Mee. Tell the truth. You got to tell the truth. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that the truth comes from our main witness, Jennifer Mee. Listen to those tapes, please. I invite you to listen to them over and over again. And while I'm on that subject, the tape statement that was given to, there's 2 tapes on there. You have to get both statements, you have to listen to the entirety of the tape. They're all on one tape, is what I mean to say. So you're not going to have a tape that you take in and out. So you have to listen to the entirety on the one CD that you'll have to take back there with you. But again, mastermind? No. Bait? Yes. When you go back to deliberate, the judge is going to tell you, one of the laws, if you return a verdict of guilty, it should be for the highest crime which has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. So you start with first-degree murder, felony murder. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to the law that the judge gives you. You'll have it to review. I submit to you that the state has proven that Jennifer Mee is guilty of felony murder, first-degree murder, and that you don't have to go any further. There are lesser included offenses, but you wouldn't go down to those lesser included offenses unless you felt that we had not met that burden. Because you are to return a verdict of guilty, it should be for the highest offense which has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. We talked about sympathy. The courtroom is not a place for sympathy. I ask you all, ladies and gentlemen, to use your common sense. Use your common sense and return a verdict that is consistent with the evidence that you have had before you in this case. Consistent with the evidence that Jennifer Mee lured Shannon Griffin to his death when she helped LaRon Rayford and Lamont Newton set up a robbery. I ask you to find her guilty as charged of these crimes. Thank you.
Okay, the deputy's going to hand out the jury instructions. You'll each get a packet when you do. If you just look up at me, then you can read along silently while I read them aloud.